good evening, everybody, and welcome to the book club session. I'm going to be hosting it today since Moini is not available, and she was not available because Satish has just come back from hospital. But Satish is here when he should be resting. Yes,
Moini is there. Moini is there.
Yeah, but good to see you, Satish, and we hope you get well soon, so we can have Moini and you back in the book club. But let me go ahead and get started for today. Today's presenter is Dr. Varsha Ghate. Dr. Ghate is a BA Honours from Delhi University. She's got an MA from Pune University and a doctorate and she's got a doctorate from Symbiosis International University. She's a qualified examiner for Cambridge, and she's been a teacher for over 24 years. Dr. Ghate, I want to tell you that for all the teachers that we've had who presented at the book club, they've always done a spectacular job. So we enjoy having teachers come and present at the book club because I think teachers present the books in a very different way than any one of us can attempt to do it. So we're very happy to have you here. Today, what she's going to present is an author who has won the Nobel Prize in 2013, Alice Munro. Alice Munro is today 90 years old, lives in Canada, and she's known for short stories. She's in fact known as Canada's Chekhov, for the wonderful short stories. And I picked this out of Wikipedia. It says that she's known for revolutionizing the architecture of short stories, especially in its tendency to move forward and backward in time. So very, very interesting to be able to hear this and listen to this. So over to you, Dr. Ghate. Looking forward to this presentation.
Good evening, everybody, and very nice to see you all, and especially Dr. Sinha, who was my guide for my PhD. So thank you, sir, for joining, because it's quite early there. You're in US and you made the effort to join. I'm very happy. Okay, I will start my presentation. I'm going to read the paper. I've not made any presentation. And I'm going to discuss two stories of Alice Munro, Open Secrets and Runaway. And this is going to be just a discussion on these two stories. Alice Munro was born in 1931 on a farm on the outskirts of a small town of Wingham, Ontario. She's the oldest of the three children of a former teacher and farmer. After passing high school, she studied English literature in the University of Western Ontario, London, Ontario. She married Jim Munro, a fellow student, in 1951 at the age of 21 years. Subsequent to their marriage, the couple moved west to Vancouver. They had three daughters. Her marriage to Jim Munro ended in 1972, and thereafter she returned to Ontario and settled in Clinton, where she lived with her second husband, Gerald Fremlin, until his death in 2013. Her first collection of stories was called Dance of the Happy Shades and was published in 1968. Her 14th, which was also her last collection, was called Dear Life and was published in 2012. In 2013, at the age of 82, she was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature. Munro has published a total of 147 stories. She doesn't write anymore. She's living, but she doesn't write. In her interview with the representative of the Nobel Committee after the prize was announced, Munro told the interviewer that as a child, she had been so annoyed by the ending of The Little Mermaid that in her anger and sadness, she had written her own ending. And perhaps it is simply that memory of her childhood turmoil that has led Munro to keep her endings open. This aspect of Munro's writing can be interpreted as an acknowledgement that if a story is to be true to life, we can, in fact, never know. Some of the important characteristics of Alice Munro's writing are: first, Munro is among the authors who has placed a particular region and his inhabitants on the map of world literature, thus in a way immortalizing it. In her case, southwestern Ontario, especially Huron County around London, Ontario, nowadays called Munro Country. Although some of her short stories also have other international settings, such as Western Canada or Scotland, Australia or Albania, the great majority of her short stories are set in the small town context of southwestern Ontario. Munro, however, dismisses generalizations, classifying her as a regional author. According to her, she's interested in the overarching topics of the human condition that are not bound to the region depicted. A second characteristic is that her stories have often female protagonists and are written from a female perspective. They focus on mother-daughter relationships, daughter-father relationships, sister-brother relationship, restrictive gender roles, gender-related professional problems. She also delves in love and relationship problems, the wonder of love, along with its failure and its transience. Problems of growing older and of aging also feature in her stories. Next, there is a strongly autobiographical, or as Munro herself liked to put it, personal dimension to her work. Many critics believe that Munro's writing tends to run parallel to her own life experiences. Thus, her earlier work focuses on her childhood and adolescence. Then she graduates to writing on career and relationship experiences, and finally to the aging process. The fourth, and considered by many as the foremost characteristic of Munro's work, is the way she combines content and form. She broadens the boundaries of the short story, experimenting with the genre in her non-linear, expansive, somewhat digressive style. Through her stories, Munro explores the fractured, imperfect, and enigmatic facets of human experience. I will now turn to the first story, Open Secrets, which I'm discussing today. Open Secrets is a collection of 8 stories that was published in 1994. Today, I am discussing the 4th story in the collection, which is also called Open Secrets. Open Secrets begins as a story told by one character to another. Here, the housekeeper Frances to Maureen, her cousin and employer. A girl, Heather Bell, has disappeared on the annual hike of the Canadian Girls in Training led by Mary Johnston. Mary has been leading groups of teenage girls on this hike every June for decades. Now, in her early 60s, the group is not what it used to be. Fewer girls want to attend. The point of view in the story is not Miss Mary Johnston's or Heather's or even any of the girls who went for the hike along with Heather. The story is seen through the eyes of Maureen Stephens, and she is the closest we have to a central character. One of the first things we learn about Maureen is that she and her husband, a lawyer who suffered a stroke, do not have children, and that many years prior, Maureen was one of the girls on Miss Johnstone's hiking trip. She is somewhat younger than her husband, and we learn almost as an aside how their marriage came about. As the text informs us, and I quote, she developed the qualities her husband would see and value when hiring and proposing, unquote. When Heather Bell goes missing, the town can't stop talking about it. Some characters gossip, while others tell a fictional story through a children's song. They sing, and I quote, and maybe some man did meet her there that was carrying a gun or a knife. He met her there and he didn't care. He took that young girl's life. But some will say it wasn't that way, that she met a stranger or a friend. In a big black car, she was carried far and nobody knows the end, unquote. In the first verse of the song, the singers speculate about the chances of Heather being murdered. But then, as if to undercut that indication or soften it, the next verse goes on to speculate that the girl actually ran away of her own free choice. This is how the other children are dealing with this disappearance. If they believed she was murdered, they would be terrified to go alone. However, if they can convince themselves she ran away, they are still safe. Thus, their perception of the world remains undisturbed. The disappearance is speculated on the radio, in the paper, and of course at the kitchen table of Maureen, Stephens, and Francis. As the plot unfolds, a couple, Marian Hubbard and her husband, Theo Slatter, arrive at Maureen's doorstep to share some information about the disappearance with lawyer Stephens. We are told earlier in the story that Marian and Theo own a farm where the girls on their hike had stopped before Heather's disappearance. Marian tells lawyer Stephens the story of the suspicious behavior of Mr. Siddicup that she had witnessed the day after Heather's disappearance. Mr. Siddicup, we are told, has recently become afflicted with a speech impediment and bizarre behaviors subsequent to the death of his wife. These behaviors isolated Mr. Siddicup as a target for town gossip. Marian, playing on Mr. Siddicup's status as an outcast in the town, his muteness, and his inability to defend himself, frames him as a probable suspect of the mystery. Apart from Mr. Siddicup, there are two other suspects for Heather's murder, Theo Slatter and lawyer Stephens, although the possibility of the latter two is never discussed by the characters in the story. It is only subtly and indirectly hinted at in the story by Munro. It is apparent that both Francis and Maureen, like the rest of the people from Carstairs, are inclined to believe that Heather ran away or was murdered by Mr. Siddicup. This explanation helps them to simplify their lives and mitigate their anxieties as Mr. Siddicup is in police custody. On the other hand, if they are not inclined to believe this speculation and try to explore the two other possibilities, then their life would seem to be in danger because both Theo Slatter and lawyer Stephens are free men. And in fact, both Maureen and Francis live under the same roof with lawyer Stephens. The sentence in the story, I quote, Maureen was anxious to get him into the bedroom as soon as possible, afraid that he might misbehave elsewhere, unquote, could indicate that Maureen suspects her husband's involvement in Heather's disappearance. However, Maureen has a stronger suspicion about Theo Slatter, which comes to her by an inexplicable vision. Maureen sees Theo, who suffers from an unexplained mental deficiency and is often treated like a child, punished by his wife, Marian. She sees Theo's hand, which she identifies by the color of the sleeve of the jacket he was wearing, pressed down unresistingly, but by somebody else's will. It is pressed down on the open burner of the stove, just long enough to scorch the flesh. In silence, this is done, and by agreement, unquote. This is a vision, and so cannot be counted as evidence against Theo. We do not know if his hand is burned, as Maureen does not notice a mark on his hand when he is in her home. It is a pivotal moment in the story, a moment of epiphany, very sudden and has no explanation, a sort of intuition. And Maureen decides not to disclose it, but accept this secret as a part of life. This vision, like Maureen's other visions, seem to suggest that characters are creating their own fictions. In another passage, Munro tells us, and I quote, sometimes when she is just going to sleep, but not quite asleep, not dreaming yet, she has caught something. Or even in the daytime, during what she thinks of as her normal life, she might catch herself sitting on stone steps, eating cherries, and watching a man coming up the steps carrying a parcel. She has never seen those steps or that man, but for an instant, they seem to be a part of another life that she's leading, a life just as long and complicated and strange and dull as this one. And she isn't surprised, unquote. One can therefore speculate that Maureen's visions constitute an alternate reality in which she likes to escape. At the story's close, the narrator tells us, and I quote, Heather Bell will not be found, no body, no trace. She has blown away like ashes. Her displayed photograph will fade in public places. Its tight-lipped smile bitten in at one corner as if suppressing a disrespectful laugh will seem to be connected with her disappearance rather than her mockery of the school photographer. There will always be a tiny suggestion in that of her own free will, unquote. Thus, Munro makes running away a distinct possibility, a choice made out of necessity, out of your own free will. Out on the overnight camping trip from which Heather disappeared, the girls play truth or dare. And I quote the sentence from the book, I dare you to run away. What makes it ironic is that Maureen, the housewife through whom we see the story, is someone who should run away. Her husband, the lawyer, has in the past denied her sex, saying it is childish, telling her to grow up, which humiliated her. Since his stroke, the lawyer's appetite for sex has returned, but with a difference, wherein Maureen is an employee or a slave rather than a beloved partner. Hence, running away for dutiful Maureen would be understandable. Munro's narrators often don't know what really went on and can't possibly know, and are forced to speculate to fill the gaps in their knowledge and make sense of their lives. This shows us the role of fiction in all our lives. As a result, makes role of fiction in our lives. The point Munro seems to be making here is that we don't need the truth. We just need something we can believe in that can explain life. What we believe is often more important and more real than what is actually real. Munro's technique of using fiction within fiction shows this by giving us characters whose lives are completed by the fiction they add to their lives, like Maureen Stephens in Open Secrets. According to Judith Miller, Alice Munro writes mystery stories, but no one puts all the clues together at the end. She explains they are not even really clues, just bits and pieces of information that appear here and there, floating through the telling of the story, many of them unspoken, coded, implied, resonating through silences. Unquote. Her fiction, therefore, is characterized by qualities that generate and deepen mystery. Indeterminacy, indirectness, multiple layering, opaqueness, and the withdrawal of closure. At the end of the story, all we know for sure is neither Heather nor her body have been found. And so a story ostensibly about Open Secret remains in the end an unresolved mystery. Thus, an open secret is an uncomfortable truth no one wants to believe because it allows the keepers to continue their lives unchanged. I turn to the second story today, Runaway. The second story belongs to the collection of short stories of the same name and was published in 2004. This collection also consists of 8 short stories. The story Runaway is about a woman, Carla, her husband, Clark, their goat, Flora, and their elderly neighbor, Sylvia Jameson. Set in a rural area of Canada, the story narrates the struggles of a young couple going through a difficult time. It was a summer of rain and more rain. The narrative voice tells us, thus setting an atmosphere of apprehension and discord. Apprehension that Carla and Clark's boarding and riding stable will fail for the lack of customers, and discord between the couple over Clark's plan to blackmail their neighbor Sylvia. When the story begins, Munro describes Carla watching the country road that goes past her house. She feels a sinking dread when she sees Sylvia, her neighbor, driving past, returning from a vacation in Greece. Carla is nervous. We know when Carla is nervous, we know when she thinks let it not be her. We understand that Carla's anxiety is rooted in fear as she hopes her husband Clark does not notice Sylvia return home. Thus, Carla is depicted as a person who is trying to avoid or run away from the reality of a situation. Carla is a young woman who, at 18, impulsively ran away from home to marry the much older Clark. Part of the reason she ran away with Clark was to escape her parents' upper middle class lifestyle and their expectations. Together with him, she dreams of an authentic life caring for animals in the country. However, we soon realize that Carla is far from happy in her life, and her marriage to Clark appears to be in a state of disrepair. To please Clark and to stimulate their sex life, Carla develops a fictitious story about how the dying Mr. Jameson next door had sought sexual favors from her during her visits to help with the housework. Carla is now caught in her lie, being unable to tell Clark the truth that she was never even once alone with Mr. Jameson. So Clark is now forcing her to visit Sylvia to set the groundwork for a scheme to blackmail Sylvia into giving him money to keep her dead husband's reputation intact. Part of this rainy summer's anguish for Carla is also the absence of a pet Flora, a little white goat to which Carla has developed a strong attachment. Flora has run away from the stables, adding to Carla's disquiet. Runaway, as the name indicates, literally is the story of runaways. Runaway people, animals, and emotions abound in the story. Carla ran away from her middle-class home to marry Clark. Flora the goat literally runs away in the story. Sylvia helps Carla to run away a second time, although without success, this time from Clark. If we consider runaway to mean out of control, then we have Sylvia's runaway emotional attachment to Carla, which Sylvia's friends describe as an inevitable crush on a girl. There is also Sylvia's runaway involvement in Carla's life, pushing her along a path that Sylvia imagines is best for Carla, but which Carla is perhaps not ready for. Clark and Carla's marriage seems to be following a runaway trajectory. Finally, there is Clark's runaway temper, carefully documented early in the story, that threatens to become truly dangerous when he goes to Sylvia's house in the night to confront her about encouraging Carla's departure. Carla's beloved white goat, Flora, also appears to be a runaway, having disappeared shortly before the start of the story. Carla and Flora. Munro has described the goat's behavior in ways that mirrors Carla's relationship with Clark. She states, and I quote, "At first she had been Clark's pet entirely, following him everywhere, dancing for his attention. She was as quick and graceful and provocative as a kitten, and her resemblance to a guileless girl in love had made them both laugh," unquote. When Carla first left home, she behaves much in the starry-eyed manner of the goat. She was filled with giddy delight in her pursuit of a more authentic kind of life with Clark. She was impressed by his good looks and his colorful employment history. Clark's repeated suggestion that Flora might have gone off to find herself a billy parallels Carla's running away from her parents to marry Clark. The goat appears in two of Carla's dreams. In the first one, she comes to Carla with a red apple in her mouth, and in the second, she runs away when she sees Carla coming, disappearing through a break in the barbed wire fence. A goat suggests sacrifice, and the apple further suggests tree of knowledge. It is through the dream and through Flora that Carla is first able to admit that her life with Clark might be dangerous, and that this is knowledge Carla is resisting. In the second dream, we get a foreshadowing of Carla's running away. The goat in the dream is hurt, may point to the reason for running and or the barb might the appearance. Clark has gone in the middle of the night to threaten Sylvia for her interference. Having been missing for some time, Flora suddenly appears to Clark and Sylvia out of the night fog. Backlit by some car lights, Flora is magical, mysterious, and a compelling force. Clark and Sylvia, having shared a mesmerizing experience, are strangely calmed. The hostility dissipates. One cannot deny the possibility here that Clark, chameleon-like, may soon turn his sexual attentions away from Carla to Sylvia and her money. At the end of the story, Carla imagines that if she were to go out to the tree where the vultures roost, she would find Flora's bones. The disturbing fact about this parallel is that the first time Flora disappears, she's lost but still alive. The second time she disappears, it seems almost certain that Clark has killed her. This suggests that Carla is going to be in a much more dangerous position for having returned to Clark. Clark and Carla. Although Clark is shown as a rather harsh and at times even menacing person, the story also places some of the responsibility for Carla's situation itself. When Carla runs away from Clark, it is probably the right decision. But it's not clear whether Carla is actually running away from Clark. She could be running away from her lie about Sylvia's husband that misled Clark into thinking they could use it to blackmail Sylvia. She could also be running away from her failures. It's not clear to us or even to Carla till the end. Carla's first and fatal mistake was how she pictures her life with Clark when she runs away with him. And I quote, "She saw him as the architect of the life ahead of them, herself as captive, her submission both proper and exquisite," unquote. Later, when she is running away from Clark, she still defines herself entirely in terms of Clark. I quote, "While she was running away from him, now, Clark still kept his place in her life. But when she was finished running away, when she just went on, what would she put in his place? What else? Who else could ever be so vivid a challenge?" Unquote. Munro was once asked by an interviewer, what are the reasons these women are running? Munro was once asked by an interviewer, what are these women running away from? And her response was, "I think they run away from a life. They can look ahead and they can see what their life is going to be. I think they run away from this. You wouldn't call that a prison exactly. They run away from some kind of predictability, and not just about things that will happen in their lives, but the things that happen in themselves." She goes on to add, "And in fact, I think the people who run away are often the people who have got into things the most enthusiastically. They think this is it, and then they want more. They just demand more of life than what is happening at the moment," unquote. Endings in Munro are often ambiguous, and this story is no different. Carla seems to be aware how dangerous Clark is. She believes he may have killed the beautiful little goat and feels this knowledge like a murderous needle somewhere in her lungs. Moreover, despite knowing about Flora's magical appearance from Sylvia's letter, she crumples and burns it, probably because she does not want Clark to see it and know that she knows, or possibly she cannot stand the truth herself. As the story closes, Carla imagines walking out to the vulture's roost and discovering Flora's bones, her skull as tiny as a teacup that she could hold in one hand. Knowledge in one hand, Munro tells us. What knowledge? Munro does not explain. Is it the knowledge that Flora is dead? Or that Carla's life is in danger? Or Carla is foolish to hold out against the temptation of walking to the edge of the woods to find out what Clark's real motives are? The answer to all these questions in all probability is a yes. Finally, what are we to think about Flora? The little white goat is clearly meant to be a symbol in the story, disappearing with the rain, reappearing with the sun, then materializing suddenly again in the fog like a giant unicorn. Symbols are fun, Munro seems to imply, without putting it in words, but they could be a poor guide to understanding. In the story, Munro is making the point of how difficult it is for women to understand that they are in danger. Furthermore, she emphasizes how the culture has taught young women that submission to a husband is the key to independence from parental control. But being actively engaged in submission as a way of life makes conscious knowledge of danger from the man to whom you have given your submission difficult. It is Carla's embrace of powerlessness that does her in. And finally, a look at some of the common attributes of the protagonists from the two stories. As young girls, Carla and Maureen are depicted as bold and full of passion. While Carla marries impulsively, Maureen cultivates qualities that would make her desirable to her future husband. Both women are trapped in an unhappy, dysfunctional marriage to men older than themselves. Both submit to the wishes of their husbands and appear defenseless and incapable of standing up to their oppressive husbands. They are inhabiting a space filled with palpable danger. Thus, both are ideal candidates for running away from their repressive, intemperate, and aggressive husbands. While Carla does try, although unsuccessfully, to run away, Maureen's dreams of an alternate life or her tendency to create fiction suggest a desire to run away. Just as Flora is a sort of parallel for Carla, in much the same way, Heather is a parallel for Maureen. In fact, Maureen is living her adolescence vicariously through Heather as she recalls all the details of the hike when she used to be a girl. Female bonding is another common feature to both the stories. Maureen's relationship with Frances and Carla's with Sylvia emphasize the close bond that exists between them. Both protagonists display a tendency to create fiction. Maureen in her vision about Theo Slatter's hand on the burner, or when she saw herself sitting on the stone steps eating cherries. Similarly, Carla makes up the story about the old man Jameson asking for sexual favors from her. Maureen and Carla have secrets that they don't want to share or face, as this way they can maintain status quo in their lives. Thank you. That is the end.
Thank you so much. That was very, very interesting. Can I request everybody to unmute themselves, and you can turn on your cameras as well so we can open this out to questions. And I just want to, I want to start the discussion by saying that there is no redemption in these stories, which is terrible. For somebody like me who needs everything wrapped up at the end and to walk away with a smile, that doesn't happen. She doesn't do that.
None of her stories, I think, has that. I don't think.
Yeah, but I think so if we start with the first story in Open Secrets, it's interesting. I think I caught on much later when you were explaining that that Heather was not somebody who really existed. It could just be a desire or Maureen's manifestation of how she wanted to be, right?
Yes, that could be very much. So exactly, the point is that the characters themselves create fictions. So we really don't know what is fiction and what is real. There are always these suggestions which are being dropped from time to time in the text. So we are always trying to understand whether this is real or whether this is a fiction of the characters, characters imagining. So it is very, there's a lot of layering also, and you have to read the story many times and every time you read, you say, oh, no, I thought this was this, but this is actually like this. So it is very interesting to read Alice Munro. I discovered her only a couple of years ago. I had not read Alice Munro before that, but because I used to go to Canada so often, I realized that I should read one of the Canadian authors, and that's how I picked up Alice Munro.
I think, in fact, when she won the Nobel Prize and suddenly came to the notice of the world, as it were, I don't know, at that time, I feel that she was pretty unknown to the rest of the world. And I, for one, I said, oh, Alice Munro, who is this? I had to Google her and I had to find out, like, who is this person? But interesting to note that she has this, this quality of, what shall we say, the unstable narrator, where you can never be sure of what the truth is. And of course, that is so fun, isn't it? Yes, I mean, there's no sense of the absolute.
Yes.
What the truth is. Amazing. Because initially, like, I got hold of a few of Alice Munro's short stories. And my first impression was that, oh, she writes about people like Elizabeth Strout. There's this writer called Elizabeth Strout, who's very popular in the US, who writes about these small towns and poor people. And this is a side of the US that one doesn't usually see. And I think that Alice Munro had something in common there. But clearly you have shown that she is so much more.
Yes.
More than that. That's very interesting. Very interesting.
Thanks.
Yes. So Sanjay Saxena is nodding vigorously. Sunita, you want to ask him if he wants to say something?
No, actually, am I audible? Can you hear me?
Yes.
I mean, I really liked the presentation. I think Dr. Ghate, her analysis was so sharp. And I mean, I haven't read a lot of Munro. About 4 or 5 stories is all I have read. But what struck me always about her work was that very powerful themes are presented through very ordinary characters. I found that remarkable. And there is the small town world. It's not just in a geographical sense, but in terms of sensibility, the way people react, the way people think, the way people behave. That is, I thought, is consistent across her stories. And I can't say I fully understand what she's saying. For instance, it's still not clear to me, even after Dr. Ghate's presentation, where was the need to kill Flora? What was sought to be achieved by getting Clark to do away with Flora? I haven't quite understood that. And I'll be grateful if you could shed some light on it. What do you feel about it?
Yeah, I think the intention, I mean, the reason why Flora is killed is, one, to show how dangerous Clark is for Carla. Because they are, like I explained, they are parallel. Flora and Carla are parallel. So, so he is very dangerous, and by killing her, that point is made, and made also to suggest that Carla's life may be, if she doesn't run away, her life may be heading in that direction. There is a lot of danger there. So yeah, I would think that is the reason.
Thanks very much. The other thing that I really like about the way she writes is the pace at which the story develops. I mean, your curiosity is sustained throughout, and you always want to know what's going to happen next. Yes. I think that the way, the rate at which the story unfurls, I think that is very well done.
Also, her use of time, if you see, there's always past, present, future. Everything is, together. You take some time to get your roots. Oh, what's happening here? Where have we reached?
So, sometimes you have to go back and reread. Yeah. But thank you, Dr. Ghate. It was the most enjoyable presentation, I must say.
Thank you so much.
I'm glad I was able to attend this. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
very well presented. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
I have a question.
Okay. Maybe Valacha is raised her hand.
Yes.
Am I audible?
Who's there?
Am I audible, Prashant?
Prashant. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You need to put on your.
Okay. Now, I have, first of all, it was an excellent presentation. Very well presented, with a lot of information. Start your video.
He's putting on his video.
And after Prashant, we can have Soni Valecha and Jyoti Puri. Both of them have questions.
Now, my question concerns the nature of marriage in Alice Munro, and the fact that in almost all these stories, the women are married to much older men. And what is the reason for this? And how does it relate to her own life?
She wasn't married to, it doesn't really relate directly to her life. Yes, her first marriage ended, but it took her more than 20 years to end her first marriage. And somewhere she has said that, that people of her generation took time, to take these extreme steps. It didn't, she said the next generation will do this differently maybe, but she says people from her generation took time to end marriages or take these steps, and that's why they had these. She also talks about the fact that when her generation reached the age of 40, that is the time they realized that their life was very monotonous and dull and boring, and that's why this urge to have either run away from their lives or to have affairs and things like that. And she said that I hope that this happens sooner in the next generation and it doesn't take, And as far as marriage to older men, I don't know. I mean, why she doesn't really have a great belief in love, I feel, from whatever I have read, stories I've read. She doesn't believe a lot in love. And she always talks about it is a very temporary feeling. And most of the times her heroines marry out of impulse, because of the physical aspect. It is, in fact, in the story Runaway, there is a sentence where she says that Kala realizes that she ran away with Clark because for sex, that was the reason. And so mostly she feels that women, and another point she also makes is about, getting away from the parents. So that was the only escape they had. Getting married was getting away from their parents' control, parental control, which I think I mentioned in my paper also. So that was another way to, marriage was one way, escape from parental control.
Sunita, would you like to invite?
Yeah, Soni, you had your hand up? You need to unmute, Soni.
Hi, thank you very much for this selection of this book. This is not a book that you can just glance through or speed read. Every word you cherish it. I particularly like the way she talks about submission as being something and exquisite. I said, how can you say that about submission?
Yes.
And this, how many years ago was this book written? And I wonder how younger ladies see submission today as. I struggled with that because I could not identify that, even though I'm of the older generation now.
Yes.
I'm sure my daughter thinks entirely differently, but even I struggle with that definition, that explanation.
Yes. And this book was written, Runaway was written, in fact, in 2004. So it was not,
Yeah.
In 2004, she wrote about this young girl, and she says submission was exquisite and she really wanted to. So, yeah.
And secondly, the way she doesn't wrap everything up, she leaves a lot of gaps there.
Yes,
and I see that as a wonderful subject or topic to be given to as a creative writing exercise to students. Say, come on, let's see in which direction would you like to take this.
Yes, you can make up so many stories out of one story, you see, if you give, it takes different directions. Yeah, you can make so many stories. It would be a very interesting exercise, I'm sure, for a creative writing class.
When you started, I said, what's so special about this book? I don't know why it has been chosen. I've never heard of Alice Munro before. And the way it developed, I said, no wonder. And then I hear she won the Nobel Prize. So fantastic choice, Moini and everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Sony. Jyoti, did you have a question?
Yes, I just feel little odd putting my explanation to her work anyways. But you see, I feel that maybe she was deriving some parallel to her leaving her first husband, maybe, and then she perhaps regretted and she never went back actually. But here she wants to, Clara wants to go back. Perhaps she's reliving, I don't know. Maybe it is that.
Maybe whatever I've read about her marriage to her first husband, it was the reason why they separated is not known. In fact, I was reading her daughter also talking about her parents, and she just says that they did not talk much, and it was just, they just separated. They just, drifted apart. So it didn't like they were not fighting or anything. Basically, Alice Munro was a very quiet person. Is a very quiet person, and she doesn't like to talk too much. Even in her interviews, she's very reluctant to open up to. So yeah.
Yes, and she lives so much closer to where I am living here in Ontario, and this story, while I was reading, I was just thinking of going and meeting her. I don't know if I can, or if she will.
I'm
she
sure
will
she would
receive
love
me.
to. Yeah,
No idea. Yeah, that's right. Yes. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Jyoti, I would like you
Yes.
to try and meet her and come and talk about it later.
Okay. I will do that.
That would be very
Okay,
nice,
on
very
my
nice.
agenda.
Yeah,
Okay,
I would
it's on
also
my
love
agenda.
to know.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, Azim.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may just add something, the killing of Flora, I thought that when Flora first comes in, she's very attached to Clark, and he sort of preens about, and she flirts with him, and he's very, very happy. And then it shifts to Carla.
Yes.
And maybe there's this desire to control her, Carla, which is very strong there. And it's also to prove that, look, if you leave me, this is what I will do.
Yes.
And without even saying it, he just cannot even accept an animal walking away from him, leave aside his own life.
Yes, good point. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Yes.
Otherwise, what a good presentation. I really enjoyed it.
We lost sound, Tazeen.
I'm sorry. You can't hear me?
Yes,
No.
now we can.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sitting too far away from this thing, maybe. I just said it's very, very interesting. And I had done Canadian literature for my MPhil. So I had read
Alice Munro.
Alice Munro in the late 80s and early 90s. So I was well aware of her. Margaret Lawrence is another writer I liked very much, who's not admired at all. And of course, Margaret Atwood is so famous. So.
Yeah,
I think Margaret Atwood is the only really famous Canadian.
Yes.
But these two other women writers I was aware of. They were very good. And now I reread this thing, and then I said, maybe I had read this Runaway earlier.
Oh, yeah.
But it couldn't be, since it was 204, you said. So I couldn't have.
It was published first time in 2004.
So how does she stand, among Canadian writers? How well is she thought of? Varsha, what is her standing, as it were? What is her place?
She was not very well known in Canada also when she was writing stories, and I don't think she was popular also because I remember she mentioning, or somewhere I read a report where a housewife is writing some stories, some, very casual remark was made about her stories. And I think she must have got recognition. I mean, she became well-known only after she has got a lot of awards in Canada for all her books, as I can see. But I would not say she was famous. At least I did not come across people when I was in Canada. I talked to people about Alice Munro, and they were like, "Yeah."
Not-
Okay. So, which
So
is
I guess she hasn't been translated then into other languages.
Mm,
That?
I have no idea actually. I would not.
Mm.
I did not check, but
Yeah.
whatever I've read up till now about her, I don't think her stories have been widely translated. Maybe some of them have been, but not really very widely.
Okay. Because that's a sign, you know.
Yes, that's a sign. Yes.
It's like already someone like Elena Ferrante has been translated into so many languages so
Mhm.
quickly. Yeah, right. I mean, she barely writes something and zoom, it's in every language across the globe.
Yes. But I think high time people pick up Alice Munro and start translating her. Maybe she's very difficult to translate also. The way, her stories are, it is difficult to translate what she's trying to say. I don't know. Maybe that could be a reason. I don't know.
I should think,
Liners-
there would be a
one-liners are
translator
very
to
good.
it.
One-liners are very good and therefore not translatable sometimes.
Mhm.
Sometimes she goes into these very short sentences and that makes them very hard-hitting and terrific style and all. I thought it was very well done. Thank you so much, Varsha.
Yes,
Thanks.
thank you so much for your comments. Thank you.
Uma, if you're saying something, you're on mute.
Okay. Okay. No, what I was saying is that her story, both the stories are real page turners, and you keep wanting to know what's happening ahead. But then you have to be very alert because she keeps jumping from situation to situation, from person to person.
Yes.
And
yes.
then, suddenly there's Mr. Siddiqui, then
Yes.
suddenly there's something else.
Yeah.
So you've got to be really alert while reading her books. So I suppose the translation also will take a lot of,
Skill,
effort.
has to be highly skilled person to translate.
Yeah,
I've never read her books before. This is the first time. Thanks for introducing me to her.
Thank you very much.
When you started, you said that, she's often, it's been said about her that her stories are rooted in Southwest Ontario and, it's all about the place where she comes from. But the themes are very global. It's something that can appeal to anybody, anywhere, the running away from predictability and the dysfunctional marriages and, living, running away from reality.
Yeah,
all
creating
those are,
fictions, it's so striking the way, her characters create fictions. And we really, when you look at it, we all do that. We create fictions to fill up the gaps when we don't understand things. We try to fill up the gaps by creating fictions. I mean, I have known people who have done that, and you're like, oh, did this really happen? Or so it happens. People do create fictions, believing them to be true.
Yeah, that's so true.
Or I guess coming over time to believe they're true. Yeah, I can imagine that. Psychologically, very interesting.
Very interesting. So much to study in one story only. It's like a novel, I mean, a single story can, there are so many aspects you can still
That's
study.
the depth.
Yeah.
That's tremendous depth.
Tremendous depth.
Sunita, I think Aruna Jethwani wanted to say something. She had a hand up.
Oh. Aruna?
Would you like to come in now?
I don't see
Aruna?
the video on.
She was mute.
Yeah.
No, she was mute for a while. She was shaking her hands around. So I was wondering whether she had something to say.
She's there still.
She's muted. Aruna, would you like to weigh in at this point? Would you like to unmute? Maybe not.
She's there.
Oh, is she there?
She's saying no. Okay.
Okay.
Anybody else who'd like to comment on the stories on your
Sunita, if I may, because I've read very little, and I'm sure Dr. Ghate has read a lot more of Munro, would it be safe to conclude that in her world, women are condemned to exist in loveless circumstances from which there's no escape, and you have to create illusions to survive. It seems to not a very rosy view of life, is it?
Sorry, I could not hear the first part of what you said. Her characters are condemned, you said, to something?
Yeah, the impression I get, and because my knowledge is limited, so I could be totally wrong. She seems to be saying that women are condemned to exist in loveless circumstances, and from which there is no escape. And in order to deal with this situation, they are required to create an imaginary world which provides them some solace. So that's really quite a negative view of life, isn't it? Is there something in her biography, in her life, that would...
No, actually, there is nothing in her life that can support this, but I feel it's not loveless altogether. What I think she wants to say is, I mean, from what I've also not read a lot of Alice Munro. I've just purchased these 2 books and I've read the stories from this book. But what little bit I understood was she does want to say that love is transient, that, you know, it is temporary. It is there for some time, and then relationships just break, whether it's marriage or it's any other relationship between, you know, other like mother-daughter also. Everywhere the love is something which is transient. That is one thing she says. And and also the fact that, you know, I don't know, yeah, one thing I feel that her endings are always not always full of hope. Although I feel at the end of Runaway, she always gives you 2 options, where she talks about, though we all know that it is Flora is killed, that is the one thing she wants to emphasize, but she gives us other options, or maybe she just, you know, ran away or something. She gives us other options. Similarly, in case of you know, Open Secrets, she in the end, so I don't know, she wants to pick up, you carry on and do some work, readers, and find out for yourself what happened.
Yes, Varsha,
Thanks, Dr. Bhajan.
we plod on, right?
Yeah, a lot of work for the reader there.
Soni, was there
Very
something
healthy.
else you wanted to say? You're on mute.
I had a question that in her book, she talks about the small town society and how people gossip about scandals.
Yeah.
Do you think that still happens in modern societies in the cities of India? Or because everybody is so busy now, do you think we don't have time for these things? We rather spend our time listening to our book, sitting with our book club.
Yes, I'm sure there are people of every kind. There are people who gossip also. I'm sure there is a group of people who are not in the book club who are gossiping somewhere.
There might be many.
Oh, I think Facebook and
It takes all to make
what
this.
is it? I mean, it's all gossip, it seems to me. You know, a thing doesn't even have to be true. They just post it anyway. So yes, I think gossip definitely happens.
So do you think social media has taken over where we left off by gossiping about people?
Yeah, like we physically got together.
It has in fact added to this, because people now they read on social media and then they get together and gossip about it, what they read on social media.
I agree. I think we've added to the problem. It's not moved from one to another. We've just compounded it.
Overloaded ourselves.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Shall we wind up, Moini?
Yes, if there are no further comments, sure.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I just want to tell Varsha that, you know, it's always so marvelous when a new writer is introduced.
Okay.
And, thank you very much for that.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad.
I mean, the way our book club functions, you know, we don't expect everyone to have read the book. You know,
Yes.
I have to keep explaining this to new members, saying that, oh, you don't have to have read it. You're there because you want to know about it and all that. So I think this is possibly the best possible use, you know, of our presentation mode. When a new writer is introduced and creates curiosity.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm so glad because
Has
I
sparked
think
so much
Alice
interest.
Munro is a neglected writer and she needs, you know, more attention, which she, she deserves it.
And you've done your bit to see.
I also like to thank Mohini for putting it up.
Yes.
Oh, it's nothing to
Write
thank
stories
me
for
for.
us.
Novel.
Thank you.
She didn't
And
write a
actually,
single
this
full-length
presentation
novel.
has been going on for 1 year. If Mohini, if you remember, it has been getting,
Yes.
for last 1 year. I'm supposed to make this presentation. So this time I said, thank God I am there and I'm.
Yeah, it's almost a year. Yes.
Yes.
So I'm chasing Varsha, you can thank me for that. She's
Yes,
the
he
one who
was.
decided on the author.
But Varsha, in 3 months' time, I would like you to speak again. So start
Yes,
working.
so I'm going to find another new author. So it may take
Yes,
longer.
wonderful, wonderful.
Okay, I think we should wind up.
Okay, thank you so much then. Thank you so much, Dr. Ghate, for doing this. We are, as you've seen, you've done such a great job. You're going to now give you have to come back, and you have to come back with a new author. So it's been wonderful. And like I said, I think it's always wonderful to have teachers who come and present, because this is not an easy author to present. And I think you did a fabulous job of it. So thank you so much. Truly grateful to have had a wonderful evening listening to you and sharing Munro with us. So thank you so much. Mohini, next.
Can I just tell everyone what they can expect in the Sundays to come? So next Sunday, Mukul Ahmed is going to discuss A Passage North by Arut Pragasam. He's a Sri Lankan author, a young Sri Lankan author. I think he's about 30 years old. So that should be interesting. And here is another author that many of us would not have read.
Yeah.
And on the 6th of March, Amanda Kongwir will be discussing the novel Pachinko, which is by Min Jin Lee. I think she's Korean. So I have recently read some stuff about Pachinko. So this is a well-known book. And on the 13th of March, we have Monali Chatterjee with another Satyajit Ray film. This is something that I have been asking for and hoping for. And Monali came through last time, with Ghare Baire. And this time it is Gupi Gayan Baka Bayan. Now, I know that Ghare Baire is iconic, and I think most of us had seen it or knew about it. Maybe Gupi Gayan Baka Bayan is not that well known. And I think it's a children's film primarily, but obviously with more depth than to be merely a children's film. And then we have Sheena Shahani with And the Mountains Echoed, and then Anindya Mukherjee with Strange Alliances by Manu Pillai. And we hope Manu Pillai himself will be joining us that day. So next time, Mukul Ahmed with A Passage North. And the last word, of course, rests with Farooq.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you for the presentation today, Varsha. And I just want to inform everybody that now we have a very good website called gyanadab.org. I would like everybody to visit the website. Also, each and every program of ours is edited and put on YouTube. What I personally want to request today is that people should go on the YouTube page of Gyanadab. You just put Gyan Adab, Gyan space Adab. You will get all the videos of Gyanadab, and whichever video you see, if possible, all the videos, just put a like and subscribe to it, and if possible, share it to your friends, because that is the way all the work that we do, all the editing that our team does behind comes in front to everybody. And all our videos are also there on Facebook. So if you go on Facebook page of Gyanadab, click events, all our programs are there. All the book club events, all the Gyanadab program events, Guldasta Urdu programs, everything, including Gyanpedia events are there. And if you go on the playlist, you'll be able to see all the book club programs together as book club programs, Gyanpedia programs together, Gyanadab programs together, Guldasta programs together. What is required is that all the people who join us should go like and subscribe, and if possible, share. So the moment you subscribe, our subscribers go up, and we get more and more weightage on the YouTube. Below every video, we have put a description column. Just like when after this program, there'll be a review written by someone. And this review will go on the website archive page of the Gyanadab's website. The same review, along with all the details, will be put below the description in the YouTube. It will be below the description in the event page of the Facebook. Now, we do a lot of work. Now, I would like that you guys should do your work and you should share this with your friends. So more and more people go on YouTube, share it, like it, subscribe it. This is my personal request, and please visit gyanadab.org. It's a fantastic website. We have added a lot of features in the website, and actually all this effort that we do of putting WhatsApp messages and Facebook messages and putting the we are putting the banners of all the program on the website. So if somebody just goes to the website, they can see the banner, they can click the banner, they'll get the Zoom link, they can click the Zoom link and come on. So all this thing about WhatsApp and things like that is not necessary actually. In one place would be good, and more people visit gyanadab.org to as many people as possible. This is my request. From the point of view of Gyanpedia, we have the waterman of the railways, Mr. Ajay Singh, going to give a presentation on 12th of March. He has done some fantastic work on water. Then on 19th, we have Eraj Barucha, and this is going to be, before we started, I requested, he has personally requested, Eraj, that he has written a book on Dr. Salim Ali, the ornithologist, if I'm not mistaken, that's the correct word. And he would like to have a joint program with Book Club and Gyanpedia. So, this is a program where, Satish, Mohini, Chetan, everybody should push in the Book Club, and we should push in the Guldasta Urdu and Gyanpedia, because he has worked a lot for environment, and we should encourage.
What date is it?
19th of March. He has already started preparing his presentation, and I'm reading his book now. One of these days, I'll pass this book on to you, Satish and Mohini. And
Farooq, I can think of to go to BNHS and see whether they will be able to.
Yeah, so he's also well connected with BNHS. This book, Salim Ali ka jo book likha hai, this has been published by BNHS only. So BNHS is the publisher of that book. And on the 26th of March, that is the last Saturday of March, we have a gentleman from Thakkar. His name is Mr. Thakkar. He has made his own telescope, 12-inch telescope, which is considered to be fantastic, and he gave us an idea on cosmology. So this is the program in the month of March. I have requested Apurva Bahadur to do his second session on the Borghat, that is the upper Borghat section of the Pune-Bombay railway line. And there's one more person, I forget his name now, who's going to do another presentation on bird photography. And like that, we'll go on. And now Nasima is working on another program. Yesterday, we had a very good program on Dakkani poetry. I don't know whether some of you joined or not. It was a fantastic program on Suleiman Khatib, an iconic poet of Dakkan. And that program has already been put on the website and things like that. And you'll get to see all that. So this is all from the other part of Gyanadab. Gyanadab has Guldaste Urdu, Book Club, Gyanpedia, and other programs of musical programs and all of Gyanadab. So I would like that everybody takes more and more part with us. Suni Valicha, no need to leave home. Yeah, you're right. Chalo, okay. Thanks, everybody. So with your permission, I close.
Thank you.
Thank you, Farooq. Thank you. Thank you for letting us know about all these branches of Gyanadab. We're going great guns, all because of you. But again, I would like to point out that the Zoom stuff started with Chetan. And Chetan is the one who taught us how to Zoom, and therefore it all happened. Okay, so today, Sunita, thank you very much. Varsha, thank you very much. And everybody who came.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Get well soon, Satish. Bye.
Bye.